Alright, so today I kind of want to talk about gear. I've been seeing a lot of things online telling you need a specific camera or you need a specific lens to make things work. I want to tell you why that's kind of not true, and I kind of want to show you a few things as to what I'm using. So then that way, when you go to purchase a camera or you go to purchase a lens, you know that you may not necessarily need the most expensive lens on the shelf that everyone else is telling you about. So give me 1 second. I'll go through my gear and I'll show you what I use, show you what you actually need, and we'll go from there. First of all, I'm going to start with the camera that's recording me right now. That's the Nikon Z5 or Z5, depends on where you are in the world. It is a 24 megapixel full frame camera, and honestly, a lot of people call it a beginner camera, but it's what I use for my videos. Also, what I use for anything when it comes to anything photo or professional or my commercial work and everything else. That's the camera that I actually grab for. The reason why is because it still renders things at a beautiful 24 megapixels. Most people are using things online nowadays rather than in person or print. So the 24 megapixel full frame sensor is perfect for it. I don't need any more than 24 in most of my work. So it's the workhorse that kind of gets most of the job done. I also use it for weddings and I use it for portraits and almost everything I do. It's the perfect camera to start with, and it's the perfect camera to do most things with. If I need anything else or anything more, typically I will rent the gear or rent the camera and put that into my pricing because sometimes 24 megapixels just isn't enough, and sometimes you do need 40. But in 99% of the cases, this is all I need. And throughout this video, you'll see some images as well with the Z5, and I'll kind of go over why I use the Z5 for those images versus another camera, and we'll go from, and you'll kind of see on the computer later on. So this is one of the shots that I have taken in my commercial photography portfolio. It's of somebody welding a giant housing for a pump. And this shot, you don't need any fancy equipment. All I needed was a Z5 and just the knowledge of how to photograph this specific moment. That's all you need. And then jumping to this shot. This is a shot from a wedding that I did a few years ago when I first had the Nikon Z5. And you can see the dynamic range is there. The skin tones are there. The colors are beautiful in this shot. Like, it's not an expensive camera, but it gives you the results that you need for weddings or anything else you need to shoot. And then jumping back to the commercial shots here, you can see that all you need to know about is freezing the action or framing or how to edit the images properly, and you can pull a lot out of this camera. You don't need the best of the best. Sometimes you just need the tool that's in your price range to be able to get something amazing. This camera has never failed me. It has beautiful colors. It's very, very sharp, even with older lenses. And it renders files just absolutely amazingly well. This is a camera that I don't think I'm going to give up anytime soon, and a lot of the portfolio that you'll see is also shot on the Z5 with all the other lenses that I'm going to go through and all the other gear I'm going to go through. This is why you don't need some of the best out there. And when we go forward to the D700, you'll see some of the other things that we have, and all the other lenses as well, and you'll see that the quality is there as well. Next piece of gear that I want to talk about is lenses that I would use with the Z5. Right now I have a Viltrox 20mm f2.8 on there doing video. I don't need a 16mm, I don't need anything wider than the 20, because as you can see here, this is a 4K crop. If I take it out of 4K, it's much wider, and I still have plenty of field of view here for you to be able to see what's going on, and it's more than perfect for what I need it for. It's also a very sharp lens. I don't have a lot of images with it yet. I haven't gone out to really shoot images with it. I mostly shot video, so any of the video that you have seen on my channel for the past, I want to say 2-3 months, has been used with this lens, or this lens has been used for that video. So I'll have to go in depth and probably go shoot a few images today to kind of show you what the image quality is like as well. It is also a lens that is pretty popular right now, so you'll see a lot of YouTubers covering this lens, so I don't necessarily need to add to all of that, but it is a lens that you should check out. It is a really good lens, and I will be using it for almost everything going forward. I don't think I really will replace it. It fills the exact need that or the exact thing that I needed a lens like this for, so it's definitely one to purchase. Next up is the lens that I use for most of my portraits, and that's the 85mm. This one is the 85mm 1.8G. I don't use anything too spectacular. There's no 1.4s or 1.2s or 0.95s in my portfolio or my gear either. But again, there's never been a need for it. This lens does everything, and it's the old Nikon lens that I adapt to the Z system. This lens has a quality to it that I just haven't seen in other lenses. It's got the distortion that I want. It has basically, it renders the features of people's faces very, very nicely. And I just can't get rid of it because it just does a job that I haven't had in any other lens. That's why I adapt it still to this camera today, and I haven't sold it. The 85mm that I've used from other companies or other examples, even other examples of the 1.8G, still don't have the same kind of quality that I look for in this one. I don't know if it's just my copy or if maybe it fell and all of a sudden it's out of whack, but it kind of has its own character. I don't know. But it has its own kind of look, and I enjoy it so much that I don't really need another one. Also, when I'm shooting in a church or in a dimly lit environment, I still don't even go down to 1.8. I mostly shoot it at f2.8 to f3 to maybe f4. And this lens does a perfect job for exactly that. Most times that I use it for, I separate the person from the background enough anyway that shooting at f4 it still renders out smoothly and softly, or I can go down to 2.8, get the person perfectly in focus, and the background is blurred out really nicely. And again, I've already separated them by quite a bit of distance, so it doesn't really look any different. I've shot many weddings using this lens, many portraits using this lens. I don't think I've really grabbed another lens for most portraits. It's kind of the go-to, and I don't think you need a 200mm for portraiture. I think the 85 is a perfect lens for that, and I think it renders everything just right. So if you're looking to save on a budget, this is a great lens to buy right now used. It's only going for a few $100s, and it's certainly a more than capable lens. A lot of people will tell you you need to go up to the best, the 1.2s, the 1.4s. You don't. You really don't. The image quality is not any better. It's just that you'll get the 1.2, and at 1.8 maybe it's a little bit sharper, but you're still going to blow everything out of focus. So it's not really good for that. Most times you're going to be shooting at 2.8, and really this is all you're going to need, and going down to this lens saves you money, but it doesn't skimp on quality. It's still a quality lens. Now, like I said, you're going to be shooting mostly at 2.8 using the 85mm. This is the rare shot that I have that's shot at 1.8 or potentially f2. And you can see it's very, very sharp. It renders colors amazingly well, and this was shot on the D700, so it has the old classic Nikon feel and the renders of shadowing and all of that stuff. It just does the job very well, and I wouldn't trust any other lens other than the 85 for a shot like this. Now, the other thing the 85 does well is ring shots, and it's not a macro lens,
but it does do well for this type of shot. You can crop in a little bit if you need to, but I didn't need to here. It focused quite close enough, and it renders the details very, very well here. And this is, if you don't have a macro lens, one of the ways you can kind of get around it is using a 85 millimeter or maybe a 200 millimeter lens to kind of get in close and just crop a little bit after. And you can clearly see all the details in the rings. The rings look beautiful, and it just does a good job. And another thing people ask me all the time, how do I get all my sport shots? This is with the 85 millimeter, and it does a very good job. It is a prime lens, so it doesn't focus as fast as some of the other zoom lenses specifically made for sports. But it does one thing that those don't. It has an incredible just feel to it, super sharp, and it renders these colors so much nicer. The 85 millimeter does a lot for this image, and really, the 85 has the minimum amount of compression you would want for sports in most cases anyway. So don't be afraid to use your lenses and prime lenses for sports. It can do a great job, and clearly it does enough here, and you wouldn't know that that was an 85 millimeter prime lens unless I told you it was.
Next up is the 50 millimeter. This is the Nikon 50 millimeter 1.8G as well. It's a good lens. It's probably the first lens I would recommend most people grab after their kit lens. And even with the Z cameras, if you can grab a 50 millimeter lens, even if it's a 2.8, or this one with an adapter, it's worth it. Just to kind of learn how to move around, kind of go back and forth, or even how a lens like this can blur out the background, how your aperture can affect the image more than what a kit lens would. So it's worth it. But with some of the lenses that are coming out nowadays, the 20 millimeter by Viltrox that I'm filming this on is also a great option. So don't feel like you have to go to a 50. 50 is kind of what your eye kind of sees or renders. But again, it's not necessarily the best lens to kind of start with or go to the next lens after your kit lens. When you're using your kit lens, most of them have 24 or 18 millimeter to around the 50 millimeter mark. Play around with it. See where you normally use your kit lens at. And if it's at the 50 millimeter range, go buy yourself a 50 millimeter prime. Now, again, a lot of portraiture on this lens, a lot of walking around shots, a lot of shots that more or so kind of more street photography. That's what I use this for. Sometimes I will use it for landscapes, but most of the time it's going to be a wider lens. And I have a wide lens that I'm getting rid of because I have this Viltrox lens, but I'll go through that lens as well for other types of photography, and we'll talk about it. But the 50 millimeter is a good start, but it's not my favorite. I do use this at weddings. I do use this for portraiture. I use this for environmental shots. I use this for headshots as well sometimes, or I'll use the 85 in most cases. Sometimes I'll use this just because it renders things in a certain way and I want that certain look. So your 85 and your 50 millimeter, I usually use them together at a wedding day. One is on one camera, the other's on the other, and we'll kind of use them side by side. One's a tighter shot and this one is a little bit wider. Now that I have the 20 millimeter, it'll probably be the 20 millimeter and the 85 together. Just because it's a little bit wider, I get more environmental shots, and then with the 85 I get the tighter shots. The 50 millimeter might be going out of my kit at some point, but for a beginner it's a good step up from your kit lens, and it's something that's not too expensive to be able to get into. The image quality is great still, and you don't need the 1.4s, the 1.2s on this one either, because of the same reason with the 85. Once you're using it in real life and actually getting to use it, you'll notice that you're shooting at 2.8 most often. And if you shoot at 1.8 or 1.4 or 1.2, you're blowing out most of what you want in your image. So the 1.8s and Even the 2.0, some of these lenses are 2.0 or they're 2.8, they're still going to be a wonderful kit, wonderful piece of kit to put in your bag. So don't sleep on them. Most of the time you're using things at 2.8, and it's probably better to go cheaper and save yourself the money, get creating, and go out.
Now, this is a lens that I really don't use as often in my kit. It's one that I, for some reason, just don't like as much as the 85 or some other lenses that I have in my gear. But this lens does something that no other lens will do, and that's give you a perception of how you see the world around you. And in this image here, you can tell it's very nicely rendered and sharp, and the colors look amazing, and it's still a great lens for being a 1.8, and you don't need something super expensive to get this shot. This is a wonderful shot that honestly would look amazing on anybody's wall, and it's a good wedding shot at the end of the day. And most photographers use 50 millimeters at wedding events and other venues like that. Really, you don't need something expensive to get something beautiful like this, and it's perfect for weddings. It's a light piece of gear, and you can take it around and have a good time. Now, I've said this already, but I mostly use the 50 millimeter for street photography type shots, and this is one that I had taken in a building that was open and kind of available to kind of go through. It is an abandoned building, and I wouldn't recommend going in there to make shots unless you really knew what was going on inside the building. But this was an abandoned building, and I decided to do some shots within there. And this shot is one of my favorite shots in the portfolio, especially for street and a few other details. And it was shot on the 50 millimeter. This is a perfect reason why the 50 millimeter is a great lens. You have the background being rendered nice and smooth. You still know what's going on. The person who is in the shadow is still in focus, and you get a sense of the scene. So that's why I like that 50 millimeter. It's an inexpensive way to get this kind of a shot where you have the background being blurred out slightly, you have a person in front in focus, and it gives you an idea of where you are and how I see the scene. I believe this was also shot on the D700, so this is a good example of the colors and everything that you would get out of that. And I'm going to be talking about the D700 in a little bit, so just keep your eye out for that.
Now, the next piece of gear I want to talk about is a very old camera by today's standards, and it also is the one camera that I still use today that really, I think, probably needs an upgrade, but I don't do it because every time I use it, it produces an image that I just can't help but love. Now, this is an oldie, but it is probably the best camera that I have in my kit. It's only 12 megapixels, and this is where I'm going to get into the megapixels don't matter as well. If you're seeing shake, my kitten is rubbing against my tripod. So I promised you in one of the videos that she'd probably make an appearance, but she keeps rubbing up against the tripod and causing it to shake. She just always loves being around me whenever I'm doing work. Isn't that right? Yeah. So this is her. This is the one that's gonna hop up on my shoulder sometimes or be in the shots. The other one doesn't like being around, but this one absolutely loves being anywhere near me whenever I'm doing work. Back to camera time. This is the Nikon D700. Like I said, it's 12 megapixels. It is a full frame sensor. It's very old, doesn't have the dynamic range of the cameras today, but what it does have, and this is something that I really love about it, it has a character to it that you just don't get in a lot of cameras today. The camera that's closest to it, and the reason why I don't go up higher, is the Z5 that I have right here. The colors are similar. Nikon has knocked it out of the park with the newer cameras in the Z system. It's much closer to their old Nikon colors of bright, vibrant colors, good sharpness across the board, and just has that feel of Nikon to it. I didn't get that feeling past the D700. The D700 had those colors in spades and was just really easy to kind of use, pick up, and shoot. Now, this has been with me since I was about 18, and I bought it for a few $100s used. I did not get it, I did not make it in this condition. I purchased it and it came in this condition. There's a few bits of rubber missing. This is falling off. The front rubber is falling off here. It was clearly well used. It used to be a wedding camera, and it is still one of my wedding cameras today. It's also one of my portrait cameras. Now, with megapixels, 24 is a lot, and for online, it's more than you're ever going to need. 12 megapixels is still a lot for online. You're going to see a lot of photos here that are going to go through it. I'm going to show you a lot of images that have only 12 megapixels. And you probably wouldn't even know if they were shot on this or shot on another camera with more megapixels unless I told you. And that's because we're not going in one-to-one, and most people aren't going to be looking at the images one-to-one. Most people aren't even going to print images nowadays. They're going to look at it, post it online, and all they care about is that it looks good online. And this camera can do more than that. This still is capable of doing a lot today. And it's still my workhorse camera for a lot of things, and I take it out for fun. And the big thing that I really like about this camera is that it is built like a brick shithouse. You can smash this thing over a bear's head and you would win the fight. Like, it is strong, tough, and can get me through almost anything. And it has gotten me through every single shoot I've taken it on. It's still super reliable, and this camera came out in 2009. And I know the person who purchased it back around that time. Still use it for a lot of my studio shots. That's mostly where this kind of lives now. And for weddings. And I'll go out and I'll shoot a wedding with this. This is my second camera. The Z5 is the first camera. And I usually pair this with an 80 to 200, or I'll pair it with the 85.
Now this is a shot with the D700, and you can see it's pretty detailed. Like, there's not a lot of things here that you wouldn't want from this image. And as it pulls out, you're going to see that the flower is rendered pretty buttery smooth after that, and the ring looks gorgeous. Colors are magnificent. You have the shadows, you have the highlights in there, and it just has this tone to it that I haven't really gotten from any other camera. It looks not film-like, but not digital-like, almost closer to what you would get from those CCD sensors, except I believe this one is a CMOS sensor still. It gives you a great range of color that I just don't get from most other cameras, and it's one of the main reasons why I still use it today. And as far as sharpness goes, this camera still produces images that are really sharp today. Like, this image of the goat here is very, very detailed. You can see still all of the hairs and fur on this goat, and the blades of grass and everything around it. It's still a wonderful shot, and you don't have to have 40 megapixels to get a super sharp image. You can get one out of a 12 megapixel camera still today.
Now, I said I'd pair that up with 80 to 200 lens, and this is it here. This is a very old 80 to 200. I believe it came out in the 80s or 90s. It has the aperture ring at the back. So this lens I keep specifically for the D700. And it is a very sharp lens. It works very, very well. You could probably buy one of these only for like a few $100s nowadays. A lot of other 70 to 200 models have come out since this one was produced, but I will say it's very hard to beat this one. The 200 still renders beautifully. I use this on a D800E that I have that's currently broken. Um, and I'll show you some of the images with this as well. I haven't shot it as much on the D700, only because I haven't gone out to really make images with it in a little while. So it's worth purchasing today, especially if you're still in the older Nikon system. But again, this is an older piece of kit that most people are dismissing because it's just not new. It's very sharp. It's just as sharp as a lot of cameras and a lot of lenses today. It gives me the shots I need. It gives me the range I need. It's still a 2.8. It's still super fast at focusing, and it rarely misses, especially paired with a D700 and D800E combo. It doesn't miss.
Now, this kind of image is why most people really want the 70 to 200 or 80 to 200 in this case. Right here, you can compress the background, blow the background out into oblivion, get what you want in focus, and have a little bit of foreground in focus and blow out the foreground a little bit more. Again, you can do that without the 80 to 200 or 70 to 200. You could do that with an 18 to 200 kit lens as well. I wasn't even shooting at 2.8 here. I was shooting at f4, just because I wanted to make sure I got most things in focus. So if you are going to get a lens like this, sometimes you don't even need the 2.8. You can go down to f4. Sometimes you can even get away with shooting at f6.5 or above and still blowing out the background quite like this if the background is far enough from your subject. And in this case, the background is pretty far from the subject, so I didn't have to do much work there. I just stuck it to f4, got them in focus, and made sure that I got everything blown out in the background because it was quite a bit away. So that's how I would use a 200 millimeter of any type, whether it be a f4 or I have to use an f6 something, or I would then use an f2.8. I wouldn't really go down to 2.8 for this type of shot. And this shot right here is what most people would use or think of using a 70 to 200 or 80 to 200 for, and that's sports and motorsport photography, because that's typically what that lens was made for. This shot was done at I think it's like 36 or whatever the max is on that lens, and then I slowed the shutter down all the way to 1/30th of a second and did a panning shot. This is very hard to do, and you're not going to necessarily get this shot with a lens or with a camera with stabilization or anything like that. This is a shot you have to get with practice. This is a big reason why gear doesn't matter, is you're practicing the technique, and all lenses can open up the aperture, or rather close it down to a point where you can get everything in focus, and all cameras can get you the shutter speeds here to be able to get this shot. So it doesn't matter what gear you have. And again, like I said, I was shooting this on a camera, I think this was the D800E, and it only has 3 frames a second. So it's not like I was shooting a camera that could get me 100 shots and then I picked the best one. This was one of 2 images basically of this car going by, because it goes by so fast that I only got 2 shots of it anytime it came by. It's based off technique. It's not based off of what lens I was using. And I could have gone to the 85mm because this was shot at 80mm on this lens. It wasn't shot all the way out to 200. So you have to remember, sometimes it's not even the lens that matters. I could have done this on an 85 and still would have had this shot and still got the shot done.
All right, so now that I've kind of gone through most of my gear and how I use it, I want to talk to you about why I haven't upgraded. The camera systems that I use nowadays, they're more than capable of doing everything I need. When I go to do a professional shoot for a commercial client, they want portraits, they want environmental shots, and they want usually somebody at work. When it comes to gear, sometimes all I need to bring is a 20 millimeter and a 50 millimeter. 20 to get the wide, 50 to get the somewhat tight, not necessarily super tight, but tight enough to show them at work. And then I just bring my Z5. 24 megapixels, upload to their websites, use for some sort of paper or flyer advertising, and then use for online ads. Sometimes they want video, and the Z5 can do all of that, whether it be 4K, whether it be 1080p, even the 1080p slow-mo, and then you could still render it at 4K through DaVinci Resolve, and it still looks phenomenal. I don't have to do much color correction. With this here, I just add in a little bit of colors that I really like and just make the contrast a little bit nicer, and done. And it's really easy to work with. I don't have to worry about Rec 709 or raw images or anything like that when it comes to like video. And then when it comes to photo, the raw images that come out of here give me a lot of dynamic range and allow me to do a lot with the image. And I don't really have to do a lot. Again, it's just making sure the colors look how I want them, and then making sure the contrast is how I like it. And that's it. I don't really have to do a lot of sharpening. I don't have to do a lot of masking here and there. It kind of gives me the image how I like it. And that's important. When you're choosing your first camera though, don't worry about colors yet. Don't worry about any of that. You're going to develop that over time. But I want you to know as you become a professional over time, that stuff matters more than the latest technology is. What is the tool giving you? How can you use the tool? Is the tool giving you everything you need? And I don't need 8K. I barely even need 4K. And I definitely don't need something that's going to shoot 100 frames a second. So I'm not going to go buy that. As a professional, I need something that maybe shoots 1 frame a second. I maybe need something that gets me, 4K video just as kind of a normal, and then I work from there. I don't even really need image stabilization because right now this is locked on a tripod. So what's the point of image stabilization? It's just going to crop the video and make it a little bit worse. Or sometimes it'll have little artifacts in the corners there and it'll wobble a little bit, and I don't need that. So for me, this is a good camera, it's a good tool, it's inexpensive, and it's giving me everything I need. Well, when you're choosing your piece of gear, I want you to think of what you're trying to get into. A lot of people want to get into sports photography. And a lot of people think that you need 12 frames a second for sports photography, or 20 frames, or 30 frames a second. You don't. I've shot lots of sports on the Z system, on the Z5. I've shot sports on the D800E. I've shot sports on the D700, and none of them go over 5 frames a second. I think the most is 5 frames. Some of them are either 3 to 4 frames a second. And I still shot sports on it. So it's not necessarily that you need all that. Most of the time it's anticipating the moment and taking the shot. If you're looking for landscapes, you don't need a 100 megapixel Hasselblad for that. Most of the time you're going to be okay with 24 megapixels to start with. Just start with learning how to use your gear. I started with a camera that had 10 megapixels and it was a crop sensor, and you couldn't go past ISO 400 or else it was terrible. The technology that we have nowadays, even going back to 2009, is much better than what I started with. So you have to remember, it's not necessarily the gear that makes the photographer, it's the photographer that makes the gear work for them. The other thing I want to mention before I stop the video is I'm going to be producing a lot more videos in April and in May, and as the weather kind of gets a little bit nicer, I'm going to be going out shooting around town and around Nova Scotia, as well as going through some of the touristy areas and making videos about that. We're going to be releasing something called the Discover Nova Scotia project, and it's my own project. However, I am going to need the help of quite a few people to get this done. So I kind of have I have a team who helped me research a few areas. and my girlfriend, who's going to be helping with the videos and at least giving me ideas as well. I'm going to be contacting a few places. I'd like to know if you can put a comment in the description or in the comment section as to where you'd like to find, some information on in terms of Nova Scotia, or if you plan to visit Nova Scotia, where would you like to visit? I'll try to get some of these areas done. I have a short on the Busker Fest in Halifax, and I'll link it in the description as well as in the title card here. I'm going to be hopefully contacting or getting in contact with some of the people at a museum here that goes over Indigenous history in the area. I really want to hit some of that because that's important to me. I wanted to do some places to stay as well as Victoria Park. I want to revisit that video and I want to do a better job on it. I want to go to a few places downtown here in town. I also want to go to some of the other places like Cape Breton Island, and I want to go visit Lunenburg again. And you could see the Lunenburg one in Daisy's Big Adventure, which I'll link in the description. I won't put it in a card, but I'll link it in the description. That one there showcases Lunenburg, Blue Rocks. It showcases the Ovens Park as well, and Daisy's time there. So you'll get a good feel of what it's like. And there's going to be a few other places I want to hit, Shelburne and Yarmouth specifically, because a lot of people like seeing what's down in the South Shore. I'm going to try to get some images and some photos, videos, and all of that stuff on lobster boats, because that's a big industry down here. So please like, subscribe, and share this video around so I can try to get some of this out to more people. And then anything will help. I will really want to get to a point where I can start making a little bit of money from this, and it could start supporting itself so I can go out and do these projects. But for now, look out for Discover Nova Scotia. I already have a few videos up kind of teasing it and kind of putting it out there, and they seem to be the ones that do the best. So I want to keep putting that out there as well. And then hopefully some of this gear review and all of this kind of stuff will help kind of boost the channel so I can do both. Please let me know, like, subscribe, comment. Please tell me what you guys want to see in Nova Scotia for now, and I'll see if I can make it happen for you guys. All right, we'll see you in the next video.